closed economy. So, friends, in international trade, the goods and services, human resources, and other resources may export or import between various countries. For example, UNO, United Nations Organizations, is promoting the foreign trade relations and peaceful and fair foreign trade relations between various countries in the world. So, here the internal trade is nothing but the trade between various regions in a particular country. The goods and services exported or imported from and to between various regions, one state to another state and one region to another region. So this is known as inter-trade. So there is a difference between inter-trade and international trade. In international trade, there are various causes for international trade relations between various countries in the world. Differences in the availability of resources, differences in the potentiality of production capacity or technical knowledge and modern methods and production of goods and various goods and services in various sectors. These differences are causes for the international trade. So friends, India has foreign relations since British colonial period. We exported some goods and services, raw materials to other countries, and we imported some finished goods during British colonial period. So, like this, every country is involving in international trade by exporting or importing goods and services or other resources between these countries. So, for the why there is international or trade relations between countries, to support these relations between various countries in the world, various economists have developed various theories. Classical economists, or the father of economics, Adam Smith, have developed a theory of international trade that is known as absolute advantage theory of international trade. And this is the cause for the foreign trade relations between various countries. Absolute advantage in having some resources and natural resources, and having cost difference or cost advantage in producing some goods and services in the economy. For example, Sri Lanka can produce rubber products with the least cost when we compare with the India. So India can have foreign relations between Sri Lanka and India for getting the benefit of foreign trade relations. So this is the reason which pointed out by the Adam Smith. Another economist, classical economist, Alfred Marsh, Ricardo also developed, the classical economist Ricardo also developed a theory that is known as comparative advantage theory of international trade. In comparative advantage theory, one country may have advantage in production of a particular good or service. Another country may have comparative cost advantage in producing one particular product or good or service. So here, according to the Ricardo, there is foreign trade relation between two or more countries due to the comparative cost advantage in producing some particular goods and services in various countries. Another theory is there, which is also known as modern theory of international trade. That is Exer-Oellin theory. Exer and Oellin, these two economists have developed the factors abundance theory of international trade. According to factor abundance theory, some countries may have some advantages or abundance of availability of some natural resources. For example, in South Africa, the availability of diamonds. In availability of diamonds, South Africa has advantage when we compare with the other countries. So this is known as the foreign trade relation or international trade relation is possible due to the availability of natural resources. So here we can say that international trade is an engine of economic development of a country. So friends, let me share the screen. First of all, let me 1 minute. Here, friends, international trade is possible due to the differences in availability of resources in the countries. So the international trade is possible due to the absolute advantages, comparative advantages, and factors abundance and availability of resources in various countries are different. Due to this, the international trade is possible between various countries in the world. So the features of international trade are immobility of factors of production. For example, the availability of diamonds are rest with the one country, a particular country in the world. These natural resources cannot be moved from one country to another country. So this is immobility of factors of production is a feature of international trade. And different national policies of the particular country is also a feature of international trade. And differences in geographical and political factors is also feature of international trade. So due to the geographical and political factors differences, one country may have foreign relations or foreign trade relations. So one country may get profits or get advantages by exporting goods and services which are produced with the least cost in that country. And differences in monetary units and differences in the degree of competition, differences in the transport costs, and the importance of gains from trade. These are the features of international trade. So friends, due to these are the features of international trade. And the role of international trade in economic development. We already discussed that. The role of international trade is an engine of economic development. Why? Because this international trade plays a very significant role in the economic development of any country. And it also provides foreign exchange, which can be used to remove the poverty and other productive purposes. And this international trade between various countries expands the market and encourages the producers of a particular country. And the international trade, it also encourages the investor to increase the investment to produce more goods. So the rate of investment is increased. So friends, some more reasons are there. Besides the local investment, international trade provides incentives for the foreign investors to invest in those countries where there is a shortage of investment. With the foreign trade policy and with the various policies undertaken, initiated by Indian government and Telangana government, we are inviting foreign investors to invest in our area where there is a shortage of investment in some fields. This we can say that international trade increases the scale of production and national income of the country. And to meet the foreign demand, international trade increased then production on large scale. So GNP also increases. And with the rise in the demand for goods, domestic resources are fully utilized and it increases the rate of development in the country and it also reduces the unemployment in the world. So the demand for the goods of a particular country rise in the international market. This lead to domestic resources can be fully utilized and it increases the rate of development in the country. So friends, the international trade helps to bring stability in the price level. All those goods which are surplus can be exported. All those goods and services which are scarce can be imported through this international trade. There is a difference in the quality and quantity of various factors of production in different countries. Each country adopts the specialization in the production of those commodities in which it has comparative advantage according to Ricardo. So all trading countries enjoy profit through international trade. So the international trade helps to improve the quality of local products and extends market through changes in demand and supply, as international trade can create competition with the rest of the world. So the international trade helps to bring stability in the economy, helps to bring quality of local products and extends international market to these local products. So friends, the benefits of from international trade. So the international trade act as an engine of economic development of a country. So it is helpful to those countries which involved in international trade in the world. So this is the role of international trade. So the role of trade in economic development, particularly in respect of developing countries, has been widely debated in modern times. While many economists view trade as a powerful engine of growth, there are many very renowned economists who highlight the deleterious effects of trade on developing countries. Economists like Herberler and Kieran Cross strongly argue that foreign trade can contribute substantially to the development of developing countries. We also can experience this one. So, due to international trade, one country can expand its trade very rapidly. So trade is an engine of economic development and economic growth of developing countries and developed countries. Therefore, trade can be a powerful engine that propels economic development and growth. Trade undoubtedly has several benefits. It promotes growth and enhances economic welfare by stimulating more efficient utilization of factor endowments of different regions. And the trade makes available to people goods which cannot be produced in their country due to various reasons. So the people of a particular country can enjoy and can avail the goods and services which are not produced in their economy. So these are the benefits from international trade. So the trade, international trade is a beneficial to each and every country who involves in the international trade. And it also helps to utilize the modern methods and techniques and technological progression of a particular country due to this international trade. So friends, here the international trade, according to D.H. Robertson, he made the profound observation that trade is an engine of growth. Though he made this observation in the context of 19th century developments, a number of economists maintain that it is equally true today. So these are the, let me share my screen. It was a technical problem earlier. This is what we already discussed. International trade is a trade between two or more countries. So that trade, international trade refers to exchange of goods and services between various countries in the world. These are the features of international trade we discussed already. Immobility of factors of production, differences in national policies, differences in the geographical and political factors, differences in monetary units, differences in degree of competitions, transportation costs, and importance of gains from trade. These all leading to the a peaceful and fair international trade between various countries. So these are the reasons why there is international trade between various countries. What is the need of international trade? So there are some differences in technology, differences in having resource endowments, differences in demand for the goods and services in a particular country, existence of economies of scale in production in particular country, existence of government policies, various government policies. These all leading to international trade between various countries. So the role of international trade in economic development, it plays a very significant role in economic development of every country. So international trade, we call it as an engine of economic development and growth. So these are the theories which were developed by various economists. Adam Smith developed absolute advantage theory of international trade. Later, David Ricardo developed comparative advantage theory of international trade and Exer-Williams factors abundance theory. So based on these reasons, there is a need of foreign trade, or there is a need of international trade among between various countries. True. So the international trade is termed as, is called as an engine of economic growth and economic development in developed countries and developing countries. So the trade undoubtedly has several benefits. It promotes growth and enhances economic welfare by stimulating more efficient utilization of factor endowments of different regions and different countries. Trade makes available to people goods which cannot be produced in their country due to various reasons. And the role of international trade in enhancing consumer choice is tremendous. Why? Because the consumer choice is now not only limited to the local market and the national market, it is international market. So friends, here the international trade it shows here the which promotes growth and economic development of developing countries and developed countries. It can improve the quality of life of people of various countries. According to D.H. Robertson, who observed that trade is an engine of growth. But later, various economists have developed that it is also an engine of economic development for developing countries also. In the 19th and 20th centuries, it can be expected to make an equally big contribution in the future. And Eberle, who listed the following benefits of trade to stress the importance of trade to the development of the less developed countries. They are: the trade provides material, means, goods, machinery, raw material, and semi-finished material indispensable for economic development. And even more important, trade is the means and vehicle for the dissemination of the technological knowledge and the transmission of ideas and for the importation of know-how, skills, managerial talents, and entrepreneurship. So friends, here we can import or export the whatever is scarce in a particular country. The international trade is also the vehicle for the international movement of capital, especially from the developed to the underdeveloped countries. So we depend uh, more on developed countries for the modern technology, modern investment and capital equipments. So the free international trade is the best anti-monopoly policy and the best guarantee. So these are the benefits of uh, international trade. So friends, due to these reasons, it may be noted that India's trade liberalization has brought in significant benefits for the consumers and the nation as a whole. Now, a wide choice of goods and goods of foreign and domestic producers are available, and after sales services have been gaining importance. So, a strong view that gains of trade are concerned by and large by the developed countries, and that the developing countries, which are mostly primarily exporters, are at a disadvantage. For example, the developing countries or undeveloped countries, they are producing only raw material and unfinished goods and services to the developed countries. But the developed countries are exporting to these developing countries for finished goods and a modern technology and capital and investment uh, to the developing countries. Automatically, the developed countries may get more foreign exchange reserves by exporting their modern technology. So, uh, this is somehow a disadvantage to the developing countries. And one more thing, Nana, terms of trade. The terms of trade means foreign trade confers a good deal of benefits on the trading countries. In international trade, terms of trade are one of the most widely used concepts by the policymakers because it is convenient to explain the country's balance of payment difficulties. So the gains from trade may not be evenly distributed between the participants. Some countries may gain more, whereas others can gain maybe relatively small. The most important determinant of the distribution of gain is the terms of trade, there at which a country exports are exchanged for imports. So in recent years, the policy discussions about the terms of trade have been associated more with the problems of developing countries because the terms of trade of the majority of these countries have been deteriorating. So therefore, various issues relating to the concept of terms of trade and gains from trade and nature of terms of trade in developing countries and other related aspects have been analyzed. We can analyze. So here, friends, there are different concepts of terms of trade. The terms of trade refer to the rate at which one country exchanges its goods for goods of other countries. So the terms of trade refer to the rate at which one country exchanges its goods and services for other goods and services of other countries. So the terms of trade determine the international values of commodities Obviously, the terms of trade depend upon the prices of exports of a country and the prices of its imports. When the prices of exports of a country are higher as compared to those of its imports, it would be able to obtain greater quantity of imports for a given amount of its exports. In this case, terms of trade are said to be favorable for the country as its share of gain from trade would be relatively larger. On the contrary, if the prices of its exports are relatively lower than those of its imports, it would get smaller quantity of imported goods for a given quantity of its exports. Therefore, in this case, the terms of trade are said to be unfavorable to the country as its share of gain from trade would be relatively smaller. So the terms of trade refer to the rate at which one country exchanges its goods for goods of other countries. So the terms of trade have a highly significant effect on balance of payments. There is a widespread and genuine feeling among the less developed countries that they have been exploited by the rich countries. According to GM Meyer, he classified various concerning the terms of trade into three broad categories on the basis of ratio of international exchange between commodities. So, three types of terms of trade on the basis of changes in factor productivity, on the basis of utility analysis. For example, on the basis of ratio of exchange between commodities, on the basis of ratio of international exchange between commodities. On the basis of this, there are three types of terms of trade are there: net barter terms of trade, gross barter terms of trade, income terms of trade. And on the basis of changes in the factor productivity, there are two types of terms of trades are there. Single factorial terms of trade is one. The second one is double factorial terms of trade. And on the basis of utility analysis, the terms of trade are classified into two: real cost terms of trade, utility terms of trade, according to Meyer. For example, net barter terms of trade on the basis of ratio of exchange between commodities, there are three terms of trade according to GM Meyer. First one is net barter terms of trade. Net barter terms of trade measure the relative change in the import and export prices, and it is expressed as TCN is equal to PX by PM. So TCN is nothing but commodity terms of trade. PX is nothing but price index numbers of exports. PM is nothing but price index numbers of imports. When we want to know the changes in net barter terms of trade over a period of time, we prepare the price index numbers of exports and imports by choosing a certain appropriate base year, and we can obtain a ratio PX by PM. So here we can compare the price indexes of exports and imports, and we can say that whether it is favorable or unfavorable to a country. And one more thing, second one is gross barter terms of trade. The concept of gross barter terms of trade was introduced by tossing, and it taken into account of the volume of imports to the volume of exports. Here the gross barter terms of trade takes the account of volume of imports to the volume of exports. It can be expressed like TG is equal to QM by QX. Like this. TG is equal to QM by QX into 100. Whereas TG stands for gross barter terms of trade, QM quantity of imports, QX is quantity of exports. A rise in TG is considered as favorable change, implies that more imports are received for a given volume of exports than in the base year. So like this, we can compare the benefits and loss due to the international trade through these terms of trade. Another index is income terms of trade according to Meyer. The economist Dorrance developed the concept of income terms of trade. It was taken by Meyer, and it is a modified version of net barter terms of trade. The income of terms of trade indicates a nation's capacity to import. It is the ratio of total value of exports divided by the price index of imports and can be expressed as T is equal to PX QX divided by PM. So like this, PX into QX divided by PM. So income terms of trade is a better indicator of nations' capacity to import, and since the developing countries are unable to change PX and PM. So Kindleberger also thinks that it is to be superior to the net barter terms of trade for these developing countries. And according to GM Meyer, one more classification is there, single factorial terms of trade. Jacob Weiner has introduced this concept, single factorial and double factorial terms of trades. And the single factorial terms of trade is the ratio of export price index and import price index, and adjusted for changes in the efficiency and productivity of countries' factors in its export industries. So for this, it can be represented by the TS is equal to PX by PM into ZX, or TS is equal to TC into ZX. And double factorial terms of trade is also there. This concept of double factorial terms of trade takes into account of the productivity of factors of production entering into the production of countries' exports as well as countries' imports. This can be expressed as TD is equal PX by PM into ZX by ZM. Whereas the TD stands for double factorial terms of trade, ZX and ZM are index of factor productivity of imports and export respectively, and PX and PM are price indexes of exports and imports. And one more classification is there, real cost terms of trade and utility terms of trade. Jacob Weiner has introduced the concept of real cost terms of trade to determine the real gain from international trade. So it can be obtained by multiplying the single factorial terms of trade with the index of amount of disutility per unit of productive resources used in producing exports. And utility terms of trade, to overcome the above defect, Weiner has introduced the concept of utility terms of trade by multiplying the real cost terms of trade with the index of relative utility of imports and the foregone commodities. So the Robertson calls the above index utility terms of trade as the true terms of trade. These are the terms of trade which are classified by the GMER and various economists. We discussed all these in this. And one more thing is there, that is gains from the trade. The gains from international trade can be grouped into static and dynamic gains. We can state that the static gains are those which accrue from international specialization according to the doctrine of comparative advantage. The dynamic gains are those which result from the impact of trade on production possibilities at large. Economies of scale, international investment, and transmission of technical knowledge would be the example of dynamic gains. Trade can provide a vent for surplus commodities, which brings otherwise unemployed resources into the employment. Also, countries can purchase goods from abroad for which there are no domestic substitutes, or importation of these goods would improve the productive power of the economy. So these are the gains we can discuss. So the factors determine the gains from international trade, or the gain from international trade depends upon the cost ratios of differences in comparative cost ratios in the two trading countries. If the differences between exchange rate and cost of production is lesser, then lesser will be the gains from trade. If the differences between exchange rate and cost of production is higher, then the greater will be the gains from the international trade. If a country has elastic demand and supply, it gives more gains from trade and vice versa. And international trade is based on the specialization, and a country specializes depending upon the availability of factors of production. It will increase the domestic cost ratios, and so the gains from trade. And if a country is small in size, it's easy for them to specialize in the production of one commodity and export the surplus production to a large sized country and can get more gains from international trade. And the gains from trade will depend upon the terms of trade also. If the cost ratio and terms of trade are closer to each other, more will be the gains from trade of the participating countries. So an increase in the productive capacity or efficiency of a country also determines its gains from trade, as it lowers the cost of production and prices of goods. As a result, the country importing gains from importing cheap goods from abroad or other countries. And we also discussed that there are static gains and dynamic gains from trade. As stated earlier, static gains from trade refer to the increase in welfare of the people and the trading countries as a result of the optimum utilization of trade. So friends, here today we are discussing about the international trade and causes for the international trade and the importance of international trade, role of international trade in economic development, and terms of trade and gains from trade. The dynamic gains from the international trade relate to the economic development of the economy, specialization of the country for the production of best suited commodities, result in a large volume of quality production which promotes growth. Thus, the extension of domestic market to foreign market will accelerate economic growth of the country. So these are the dynamic gains which accrue to the developing countries from international trade. We can discuss these dynamic gains or through foreign trade, developing countries get material means of production such as capital equipment, machinery, and raw materials, which are so essential for economic growth of these developing countries. And even more important than the importation of capital goods is the transmission of technical know-how, skills, managerial talents, entrepreneurship through the foreign trade. And the major dynamic gain from international trade is that export markets widen the total market for a country's products. And these dynamic gains from trade accrue to an underdeveloped or developing economies in the form of an unending perennial income flows which continue even after the economy has become integrated into the world economy. Trade is a dynamic force that stimulates innovation. New ways of producing and organizing production are spread to the local economy through trade, and the competitive force of trade stimulates adoption of cost-saving techniques. And trade also makes possible economic local production of many goods that would otherwise be prohibitive to produce locally. So these are the gains from trade, friends. So up to now, we discussed the international trade and benefits from the international trade and terms of trade and the role of international trade and the importance of international trade in achieving economic development. Okay, friends. For today, I am ending this class. Thank you very much.